The call of the Hogs can be heard all the way to San Francisco.
You're listening to Pod at the Palace with Curtis Wilkerson on Inside Arkansas.
Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday. Welcome into the show. Curtis Wilkerson here with Inside Arkansas on the Pod at the Palace to talk some Razorback hoops with you. Feels good to do this coming off of a big win, right? Was so sick of doing the, they really battled, but came up short. Nonsense. Arkansas finally gets over the hump, gets a huge top 15 win over Missouri, a signature win at home. We've talked about all those things, but now let's revisit a little bit this NCAA tournament talk, bracketology, the bubble, whatever. It's all the rage at this stage of the year in late February because, the calendar flips to March and it's all about the madness at that point. We want to see the Razorbacks get there, and they definitely strengthen their standing with that win over Missouri. Now, in fairness, I created a little bit of a stir when I put out the updated net rankings because on the surface, you can look at it and say, man, this is kind of crazy. Arkansas moves up 3 spots in the net after losing at Auburn, but they only move up 1 after beating a top 15 Missouri team. What gives? What's going on here? And the truth is, it's a little bit more nuanced than that. You got to remember these net rankings, they change every single day. And it's not just Arkansas specific. It's based on everyone around the country and those results. So you have to also account for Illinois, who is a loss on your schedule, obviously a high quality loss if those things exist, but they get beat by 50 by Duke. So that drops them a little bit. So it changes some of your efficiency, right? Texas, a nice win for Arkansas on the road. They go get smacked at South Carolina. You've got to adjust for that. So every time those things update, it's not just about you and what you've done. It's about everybody around the rest of the country. And honestly, at this point, like the sample size is not small anymore, is it? You played 27 out of 31 regular season games. There's not going to be that much movement there. You're just kind of strengthening and solidifying yourself. And Arkansas did that. It wasn't the crazy bump that maybe people hope for. But at the end of the day, adding another high quality win to your resume, huge, because this team needed some more meat on the bone there. And they did jump up, take at least a slight bump in the right direction in every single metric out there that matters. So let's jump right into it and see where we're at. We're going to talk about the SEC pecking order with the bubble here, which is crazy. But I will just say real quick, Vanderbilt picked up a huge win. They needed it, knocked off Ole Miss. Same thing for Oklahoma. They desperately needed one. They pick off Mississippi State. Arkansas got the best win of the bunch against a Missouri team that entered play in top 15 in the net. They were 10 or more spots higher in those rankings than the wins that your competition got there. So whereas you wish, that you were the only team on the bubble, especially in the SEC, that grabbed a huge win, at least you got the best one, right? So it's a pretty good spot to be in for Arkansas. But let's jump over to the screen share. Y'all know I love to get on Torvik, barttorvik.com, and start messing around with some things. So we're going to do that real quick. Let me make sure I don't screw this up. So here and boom, there we go. Okay, we're over there now. So let's take a look at this. We'll go down to Arkansas, who still a little bit lower at Torvik than some of the others. They're at 44th. They did move up. They passed UC San Diego. Thanks for that. But I like the update here for Arkansas. If you take a look at it over here on the right side at the bottom, Arkansas's tourney odds, so odds of making the NCAA tournament, have gone up to 66.3%. We were doing this for a while there. It was 10%, and they got up to 25% and 30 some odd percent. Now you're up at 66.3. That tells you that Arkansas is headed in the right direction, right? And you love to see it. If you go down at the schedule here at the very bottom, you can see that Arkansas is projected, at least by Torvik, to win 3 out of its last 4 games this season. So beating Texas, beating South Carolina and Mississippi State, and then losing that game on the road at Vanderbilt. So that's interesting, right? So maybe let's just go over to the TeamCast simulator, which we love to do, and see what that looks like for Arkansas based on Torvik's projections. So we do not want Houston. Houston's in there. Houston's playing for a 1 seed, right? Let's get Arkansas pulled up. There we go. Okay. So we'll go through and we'll do this simulator by the chalk, what they're expecting. We got win over Texas. Okay. A win at South Carolina. All right. A loss at Vanderbilt. I don't like it, but we'll go with what they say. and then a win over Mississippi State and submit that thing. I mean, that's obviously lock status for Arkansas. They go 3-1 the rest of the way. There is zero question, and I don't think they're playing in Dayton either. So that would have them up at 19-12 and 8-10 in the SEC. They ain't leaving an SEC team out with 8 wins in the league. Let's see where they have Arkansas. Well, I can already tell by looking at the right column here. They're not in the last 4 byes. They're not in the last 4 in. So that means they've moved off the bubble. If they do that, there is no sweating it out on Selection Sunday. Freaking sign me up for that because we've been sweating it out for the last 6 weeks. Okay, there we go. Down here at the bottom, a 9. And so, and again, this is just Torvik's projections. It's one simulator, but it's based on 1,000 simulations that they put together. But it is a metric that's on the NCAA tournament team sheet. So you take stock into it. And is it foolproof? Is this exactly what would happen if Arkansas did this? No, but it's a pretty good indicator. But as you see, Arkansas's got the opportunity to play itself into an 8-9 game, which nobody wants, but it would get them off the bubble. That's interesting. And just looking at it here, you would kind of be theoretically paired with Gonzaga. How would that be for Cal's first tournament experience? Get a game against Gonzaga in the round of 64. It doesn't even make any freaking sense. But whatever, I'll take it. I want to do another thing just for funsies. Let's see if what they think if Arkansas wins out, which going 4-0 the rest of this stretch here, is it likely? Probably not. I mean, Arkansas, that would be 5 straight wins. They haven't done that since non-conference play, but it's not crazy given the slate that you have here. Arkansas has already kind of gone through its gauntlet, and it's favored in 3 out of the 4. And the one you're picked to lose is at Vanderbilt. And no disrespect to Vanderbilt. They're really good this year. But do we think that's just an unwinnable game for Arkansas? I don't. So what if they did that? What would that mean? What would it look like? Scroll. Where are we at? Still a 9. Okay. And keep in mind, this has nothing to do with the SEC tournament. It's just the finish of the regular season. But yeah, I mean, there you have it. They would move up to the top 9 seed. And obviously there's going to be some variance. It's like a standard deviation type thing there. But the point is, Arkansas will be really locked in. I know a couple of weeks ago we did the thing where it's like, well, if they win their last 8 games, they could get up to a 5 seed or whatever. Yeah, well, there's only 4 left, and they didn't do all that. But the point is, there's an opportunity for Arkansas to be in a good spot. Let's mess around with it just a little bit more. Let's like 2-2, for example. What would that look like for the Razorbacks? Let's take them first, winning their home game. So win at home against Texas, fine. You slip up at South Carolina. Texas did. That would suck. That's like the worst loss you could take, right? You lose at Vanderbilt. You beat Mississippi State to close the year. What do we look at? We've got last 4 byes. So still on the bubble, but safely on the right side of the bubble, where that would have Arkansas and a 10 seed there. Is that reasonable for you guys going 2-2? And again, this is even counting into fact anything that could happen over in Nashville for the SEC tournament. What if they really screwed the pooch? Lost their last 3. We really hope that doesn't happen. But what if it did? Then they'd be on the outside looking in. So it sounds to me like Arkansas needs to go 2-2 minimum down the stretch. Is that reasonable? You guys feel okay with the possibilities there? I think I like it. All right. What else we got here? And again, like I said, man, keep in mind that this is not taking into account the NCAA or the SEC tournament. So like if it ended today, Arkansas would be the 11 seed in the NCAA tournament. They'd be playing either Oklahoma or Georgia in the first round. Unless Arkansas gets in the top 10 of the SEC league standings, they would be playing all quad 1 games in the SEC tournament, however many they played. If they get in the top 10, they draw LSU or South Carolina likely out of the gates there, and those are profiled as quadrant 2s on a neutral site, which still aren't bad games to have, but the more Q1s, the better, right? And it is interesting because Arkansas is 11th, but they're only 1 game behind Vanderbilt to get into 10th. And you still got that head-to-head to come with them. Both Kentucky and Mississippi State are hypothetically still in play to pass. You're 5-9. They're both 7-7, so you're 2 games back with 4 to play. I would say, well, it's interesting because you do have the head-to-head win over Kentucky. So there's that. But you also still have a game in hand to play against Mississippi State at the end of the year. So it wouldn't be crazy there to see Arkansas jump into that top 10. But honestly, unless they get into the top 8 and get a bye, I would prefer them to be 11th or lower, because you just get a higher quality game when you get down there in Nashville. So, okay, a few more things to get to before we close up shop here. And I want to show you guys the SEC bubble picture, because it's just, well, frankly, it's insane. So let me find it. Here we go. Okay. This is nuts. I mean, there are 5 SEC teams on the bubble here, and an argument could be made, I think, for pretty much any of these teams, aside from Georgia, maybe right now at this point, to be in the NCAA tournament. So just for a frame of reference, like resume, predictive, what the heck does this mean? So they separate your metrics. The resume metrics are like KPI, your strength of record, wins above bubble that we've talked about. Your predictives are like KenPom, Torvik, ESPN's BPI, etc. Right? So basically, we took an average of those, and it comes straight from barttorvik.com. And then we've got the quadrant 1 records. Now, keep in mind, not all quad 1 wins are created equal. Like, for example, 3 of Arkansas's 4 quad 1s are Q1As, which means they come in the top half of quadrant 1. So you could go on the road and beat the number 74 team in net, and it's a quad 1 win for you. Well, that's a way of separating that versus going on the road and doing what Arkansas did at Kentucky, right? They weigh that a little bit better. So keep that part of it in mind, in fairness. But here you have it. And it's kind of crazy to look at this. You see how close Arkansas and Texas are, for example? And this is why, to me, Wednesday is so important. Because let's say you have similar finishes the rest of the way, but if Arkansas sweeps the head-to-head series between the two, that's going to carry weight. Arkansas is going to be ahead of them. They're going to be well positioned in that standpoint. I look at that Vandy game right now. I see Vanderbilt with 1 fewer quadrant 1 win than Arkansas in there, and I like it, the fact that it's at Vanderbilt, because it gives Arkansas an opportunity to get another Q1 in hand against Vandy. But because it's a home game for Vanderbilt, Arkansas is only a quad 2 opportunity for them. So it kind of works out in your favor. I mean, obviously they'll have home court advantage, but you see what I'm saying there, right? The schedules remaining here, they fascinate me. They really do. Texas, I feel like, controls its own destiny more than anyone with games. They're at Arkansas. They get both Georgia and Oklahoma at home, so they're playing all these bubble teams, and they also have a road trip to Starkville for Mississippi State. The Sooners, I think, are maybe in trouble here. They really needed that win the other day, so good on them for getting it. But they host Kentucky this week. Saturday, they got to travel to Ole Miss. They got a Missouri team that blew their doors off coming into Norman, and then they're on the road at Texas. So they seem like Georgia is in the worst shape right now. Oklahoma might have the worst path ahead, in my opinion. Although it ain't easy for Vanderbilt, because they're at Texas A&M, and then they get Mizzou at home this week. That's brutal, man. And then obviously Arkansas is coming in, then they go on the road to Georgia. Georgia, they're home against Florida, and we know that Florida is a wagon right now. And they've got a road swing at Texas, so a big bubble matchup. And South Carolina, who just, they just picked off Texas. It's not going to be an easy game for Arkansas either. And then they host Vanderbilt. So it's going to be crazy to see how this plays out. At least one. And probably 2 of these teams are going to be left out, right? Maybe even 3. Who's it going to be? You tell me. If I had to guess right now, I would say that Georgia is in a tough spot. Texas, depending on how they play out here, like if Arkansas beats them on Wednesday, they're going to be really kind of reeling at that point. Oklahoma, we've talked about it. They just had those 5 quad 1 wins, and that's a lot for a team to be left out of the field. But they also just have a brutal slate here to finish. And Vanderbilt, which kudos to them, man, because they've got some awesome wins. You think about them beating Kentucky and Tennessee there in Knoxville. That was a big win over Ole Miss, but they're still a little bit behind in terms of those Q1 games. And the schedule is unforgiving for them, so it might be them. I look at Arkansas, and I'm not trying to do the homer thing, but I feel like they might be the best position of this group to get secured and lock things up here. But who knows? Who knows? We'll have to wait and see. The other thing, hey, listen, we got to do the bubble hate watch, right? It still matters. We still got to monitor these results, and it's not just the SEC, although that's kind of what we talked about here for the most part today. But Monday, Tuesday action, your bubble hate watch list. Let's take a look at it. In the SEC, all these games are on Tuesday. And I included these are the Tuesday, Wednesday slate for the SEC. It's just Tuesday for the others. Florida at Georgia. At this point, you're just rooting for all these teams to lose, right? Florida, go ahead and handle your business. Get Georgia out of there. This would be a pretty tough one if they lose that game at home. It's one of their better opportunities because you're playing in your own building where they're really good for what it's worth. That would be brutal for them. Vanderbilt at Texas A&M, a win would really lock them in, right? A loss isn't going to kill them, but certainly they'd still be behind the 8 ball a little bit. Kentucky at Oklahoma. Again, with Oklahoma, a win there, I mean, that gets you up to 6 quad ones. I mean, you know, I get it. They've lost a lot of games, but you can't ignore that. So believe it or not, we're hoping BBN goes in there and takes care of business. And obviously Texas at Arkansas, a huge bubble matchup. If the Hogs are able to get that one, would really, really be in strong position to be nearing lock status. Around the country, just on Tuesday, North Carolina at Florida State. North Carolina, the only reason they're hanging around on the bubble right now is because everybody else sucks. Nobody else can figure it out, and North Carolina is just they're winning these quad 2 games and quad 3 games because the ACC is so bad. What it's really going to come down to for them, for the most part, is what they do against Duke at the end of the regular season. But that's only going to matter if they don't have any slip-ups between now and then. Florida State, they picked off Wake in a bubble matchup here recently. It's at Florida State. Could be a weird one. If the Seminoles are able to knock off the Tar Heels there, we can officially stop talking about them. Baylor at Cincinnati. Cincinnati got a big win over TCU over the weekend to kind of keep their hopes alive. They're probably in like that next 4 out category. Baylor, it's interesting. I mean, they have the same record as Arkansas does right now. They've really been laboring, and they've got some good wins, but they're nearing bubble territory here. If Cincinnati picks them off, you're going to start seeing Baylor popping up on some of these bubble discussions, which is interesting. TCU, that was a tough loss for them against Cincinnati. It keeps them still very much on the outside looking in terms of making the field. They're on the very fringe of that bubble. But West Virginia is one that we've kind of been keeping an eye on. They keep dropping games. You see them in that 10 seed range. Now, in some cases, you're seeing them in that, last 4 buys to where they're still safely in, but they're scratching the surface of that bubble. If they get popped by TCU at home, that's a good one for TCU. It'll keep them, just alive in the conversation. And then you'll start seeing West Virginia drop out to, kind of that last 4 team in, conversation, everything like that. So those are the games to kind of keep an eye on there. I hope I didn't bore you with all the math, but I'm fascinated by this stuff. I love it. I really do. Like I wish Arkansas was competing for a 1 seed right now, and we could be talking about that. But I love bracketology, love the bubble talk, and figuring out how these results and these metrics and everything work. And again, Arkansas in a good spot. You can breathe a little bit easier, but you can't get relaxed. You can't get too comfortable. We'll see how it all plays out. But appreciate you guys for tuning in, tapping in with us as always. Get subscribed where you need to get subscribed. Make sure that Inside Arkansas YouTube channel that you're tapped in there because we got all of our Pod at the Palaces. We got the Inside Arkansas Live every Monday through Friday. Bombastic with Andrew for everything going on with baseball. And make sure you turn those notifications on for any time that we go live. And check us out in podcast format, the Pod at the Palace. If you can't watch on a given day, this is a good one to watch because it was interactive. We had some graphics, right? But if you need to listen in podcast form, find us over on Apple, Spotify. We're there, and we'd certainly appreciate the support. But I'm going to get out here. You guys have a good day. It's been Curtis Wilkerson with the Pod at the Palace. We'll see you in the morning.